Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, our mission is a bit different. We're looking at concepts that usually feel very high up in the abstract.
Yeah, things like guidance or strain.
Exactly, and divine consequence. We've got a stack of sources that tackle these huge ideas, but we want to ground them completely in just observable, everyday human experience. Okay, let's unpack this. The goal here is to stop seeing these concepts as, I don't know, arbitrary rules or just abstract theology,
Hmm.
and instead see them as, well, lawful, as predictable psychological patterns. We're really asking, if these teachings are universal, how do they have to show up as simple cause and effect in your own life?
That's the core task, really.
Well,
We're hunting for that very clear, very humanly observable thread that connects these, powerful spiritual statements with practical day-to-day consequences.
right.
And if we do it right, we should see that every single consequence in the sources is just the result of this undeniable pattern. Your inner choice creates a momentum. A trajectory, exactly. And that trajectory leads to a totally inevitable outcome. Cause, trajectory, consequence.
So let's start with the lessons themselves. The sources lay out about 6 powerful statements that seem to define this lawful reality. They seem pretty distinct at first,
They do.
but we can kind of group them into 3 big themes. The first one is all about the refusal of truth.
Okay.
This has statements like, certainly God does not guide one who is a transgressor and a liar. It also talks about how transgressors and doubters are left to go astray.
Right, and that part about disputing God's revelations without any authority, that fits in there too. It's an active refusal.
It is. Then you have the second theme, which is about isolation and vulnerability.
Mm.
And this is really captured by that powerful question. Who will help us against the scourge of God if it befalls us?
Yeah, that one hits hard. It's that moment you realize you're completely on your own.
It is. And finally, the third theme, which is maybe the most important for understanding the others, is the reality of fairness. The sources are very clear. God never wills injustice on his creatures.
Which is the ultimate check on all of this. It forces you to see it as a system, not a whim.
So we have these 3 buckets: refusal, isolation, and fairness. What's the one unifying principle that actually governs all of them?
The unifying principle is this. All of these statements are about how reality responds to your inner stance toward truth. And critically, it responds lawfully, not randomly.
Okay, so they're not commands, they're descriptions.
They're descriptions of the operating system of human psychology and morality. The fascinating part is that the pattern is the same for all 6. It's a consequence that naturally unfolds when a person, engages in self-deception.
Lying to themselves.
Lying to themselves, knowingly crossing moral lines, demanding guidance while refusing to take any responsibility. These actions, they set you on a path of self-imposed bias, which eventually just hardens into your objective reality.
Okay, hold on. I think a lot of people hearing a quote like, "He whom God lets go astray," they'd hear that as a really harsh external punishment,
Of course.
like a divine light switch is just flipped off on you. So if we're mapping this to psychology, how do we square that feeling of judgment with the idea that this is an internal, lawful process?
That is the most crucial distinction to make. When the sources use that kind of language, that suggests an external block. We have to translate it. We have to see the internal mechanism.
So what does it feel like from the inside?
It feels like losing clarity, losing support, and losing protection. But the mechanism isn't external. The person is disconnecting themselves from the very things that provide clarity and support in the first place.
Like truth or humility?
Truth, humility, intellectual honesty, you name it. It's like if you repeatedly insist the sky is green over and over, eventually when someone asks you what color the sky is, you genuinely struggle to see blue. The sky didn't change. You just destroyed your own ability to perceive it accurately. That's the lawful consequence of sustained self-deception.
That makes so much more sense. It's a self-inflicted disconnection. It bridges that gap between the theological language and the psychological reality. So let's make this even more real. Let's trace the one experience that I think teaches all 6 of these lessons. The simple experience of refusing honest feedback.
Yes, this is the mechanism. This is how people, step by step, choose to go astray.
We can break it down maybe into 4 stages, starting with step 1, the moment of resistance. The cause.
The cause. This is when the input arrives. It's a warning. It's some solid evidence, maybe painful advice from a friend you trust, or just direct correction.
And what's the internal response? It's almost always the same, isn't it?
I don't want that to be true.
Exactly. I want my current idea to be right.
Yeah.
I want to be comfortable.
So to handle that dissonance, you do what the sources describe. You downplay the feedback. You You might even attack the messenger.
Or justify what you did before. Or you tell that one small lie, and it's always to yourself first, just to protect your worldview. Right. So if your accountant says your business is failing, and you say, oh, he just doesn't get my vision, he's too conservative, that's it, isn't it?
That's the moment.
That denial maps directly onto transgression and lying. You are actively building a wall between yourself and the truth.
You're transgressing the boundary of honesty that you need to navigate successfully. And in the language of the source material, that moment of resistance, that's the choice to dispute without authority. You're arguing to win, not arguing to learn.
Which leads right into step 2. Inner signals start fading. This is the trajectory. What happens when you repeat that resistance not just once, but over and over for months, maybe years?
This is where it gets really dangerous. Psychologically, your conscience just gets quieter. You've hit the snooze button on that internal alarm so many times that it takes something bigger and bigger to even make it ring.
So clarity gets harder.
Clarity gets much harder. Confusion, worry, anxiety. That just starts to feel like the normal background noise of your life. And the most insidious part,
What's that?
wrong starts to feel reasonable. Your ability to tell the difference between honest self-critique and self-justification just right. It fades. You only look for info that confirms the wrong path you're already on.
This is the practical definition of he whom God lets go astray.
It is.
It's not an active block. It's the person making themselves unable to even hear the signal anymore. They're not blocked from guidance.
Yeah.
They're just no longer attuned to it. They broke the tuner themselves.
Yes, they've opted out of seeking truth with humility.
Yeah.
And since humility and honesty are the absolute prerequisites for receiving guidance or any honest feedback at all, when they're gone, the system just stops working for that person.
The signal is just drowned out by their own justification.
Completely.
And that trajectory, it leads inevitably to step 3. Isolation during consequences. This is the moment when the resistance finally hits a wall, an undeniable reality.
The consequences arrive.
And they don't care about your excuses. Think about that moment the debt collectors start calling or a relationship finally implodes. Suddenly you realize your clever logic can't save you. The excuses that seem so solid when you said them to yourself they crumble. Your job title, your status, it's all useless.
In that moment of total vulnerability of being exposed, it links directly back to that lesson of isolation. If this really falls on me, who can help me now?
Yeah.
It's the crushing realization that you're standing alone because you systematically pushed away the very people and structures, the guidance that would have protected you.
So the business owner who ignored his accountant.
And his partner, who begged him to change course. When it all collapses, his network can't save him, his partner is gone. He's isolated because he rejected the very structure, the accounting advice, the relationship that offered protection. He chose the delusion over the support system.
Which sets up that final, painful moment of clarity. Step 4, the realization about injustice. The consequence.
Right. It's a reflection that often comes way too late, but it's sharp. It's undeniable.
It's the thought. This wasn't unfair. I walked here, step by step.
And that is the lived, undeniable experience of the lesson. God never wills injustice on his creatures. It becomes crystal clear that no outside force harmed you. The harm simply followed the exact path you insisted on taking against all the feedback.
The outcome lawfully matches the inner choice.
Always. If you chose a path of denial, you get the consequence of chaos. It's a perfect match.
Okay, to really bring this home, let's use a simple analogy. Something completely non-religious, something we all use every day that shows this exact dynamic. A GPS.
Ah, the GPS. Perfect.
Think about that whole sequence of self-deception, but now you're in your car. The GPS gives you directions, guidance, but you just ignore it over and over.
You're insisting, I know a better way. I know better than the software.
Exactly. You start making up justifications for your random turns. You even mute the voice because, frankly, it's getting annoying. What happens next?
Well, eventually, if you've gone miles off the main road and you're now on some dirt track, the GPS doesn't just keep recalculating perfectly. It might pause. It might give you absurd directions, assuming you're about to turn around, or it might just get stuck on rerouting forever. You've gone so far off course, rejected so many inputs, that it can't guide you anymore without your full cooperation. You just feel lost.
And here's the critical question. Did the GPS wrong you?
No, of course not.
No. You disconnected yourself from the guidance that was available. You refused the clarity it was offering you.
And that perfectly illustrates the relational aspect of guidance from the source material. Moral clarity, truth. It can't force its way into a closed heart, into a mind that is just set on resistance.
So it's not a curse.
It's not a curse. It's a passive withdrawal of support because the individual made themselves unreceptive.
The real core teaching here, then, is that the sources are giving us a field manual for how truth and moral clarity actually behave in real life.
Yes. If guidance were purely mechanical, if some higher power just overrode all your bad choices, there'd be no need for conscience or humility or free will.
Right. The fact that the outcome has to match the inner choice is what makes us truly responsible.
And when you realize that a concept like God leaves the transgressors to go astray is just a description of what happens when a person destroys their own receptivity,
Yeah.
when they substitute self-deception for truth, the whole picture just snaps into focus.
Self-deception blocks learning,
Repeatedly crossing boundaries numbs the conscience.
and clarity can't enter a closed heart.
These are psychological laws. They're universal.
So what does this all mean? The big takeaway for me is how cyclical all these statements are. They're all describing the exact same process, that trajectory of self-deception, just from different angles. And they all confirm that consequences aren't arbitrary. They're the natural, lawful result of disconnecting yourself from the only reliable source of clarity there is, truth and humility.
And that leads to a really crucial question for you, the listener, to take away based on this material. The texts say that disputing without authority, we've sort of established means arguing against clear truth just to save face or win, is fundamentally damaging.
Right.
So if clarity and guidance are relational, what is the practical difference in your own life between choosing to enter a discussion with the goal of arguing to win versus entering it with the sincere goal of arguing to learn?
Oh.
Which one of those choices preserves your connection to honest feedback? And which one immediately sets you on that path toward self-deception and the fading of your own inner signals? That single choice, it dictates the entire trajectory of your clarity.